So hello everyone. After our summer break, I'm getting back to our interviews on virtual exchange for uni collaboration, and today I'm going to be in conversation with Reinout Klamer. But before we start, Reinout, please introduce yourself and tell us which institution you're with and what your role is within that institution.
Sure. So my name is Reinout Klamer. I come from the Netherlands. I have an international background and I work for the Hague University of Applied Sciences. And I have several roles there, but for this purpose, I will say virtual collaboration coordinator is my main role.
Yes, and in fact, that's what we're here to focus on in our conversation today. Now, Reinhard, I'm going to attempt to screen share an infographic in a moment. And I understand that at your institution, you have about 60 VE projects that are ongoing, and you shared this infographic with us as it represents how VEs are work within your institution. Would you like to briefly talk us through this infographic? It might be useful for other, teachers thinking about institutionalizing virtual exchange. So yeah, have a go at talking us through that.
Sure. So we indeed have about 60 virtual exchange projects, most of which are collaborative online international learning projects, some of which are blended intensive programs, which we've also classified there, in which we reach about 2,100 students, and we have about 70 lecturers participating. And this infographic shows some insights into how we've organized this, although some of the labels are from 2 years ago and sometimes functions change. But to introduce this, basically, I would say it's more of an approach to try to institutionalize virtual collaboration and to support lecturers in that, but to build a bit of an ecosystem around that as well.
How long ago did your institution take an interest in virtual exchange? Because I'm hearing you have a lot of projects ongoing, you have institutional support, there's a lot going on. How long has that taken to build up, and how difficult was it for you to get institutional support?
It's not been an easy road. I think for many universities that start with virtual exchange, they start enthusiastically with some lecturers. And that's the same, I think, at THUAS. It started before I was active with it, and I was active with it from 2016.
Oh, wow.
So we had a few lecturers who were active with COIL or other forms of virtual exchange, but they were only doing it by themselves. And at a certain moment, there was some pace gathered, and there were more projects, and it became more faculty-led, and then in the end, also a bit more centrally led. So it's really been a bottom-up approach. But the institutional support has been there from two sides. One is leadership, who has always been very pro-internationalization at the Hague University of Applied Sciences. And the second one is the research aspect, because we have a research group, Global Learning, and they research the practice that we also do, and that enables a kind of how do you say that? A kind of back and from flow with practice. So sometimes the practice develops, and then you can research that, and sometimes the research develops, and the practice can take advantage of that as well.
So we spoke in our pre-chat, we talked about the aspect of continuous improvement through qualitative research. And I wanted to focus a bit on the aspect of research. We've interviewed a lot of people about their VE projects from the experiential perspective. And I'm hoping to do a series more about the research aspect. So can you tell us a bit more about how that works at your institution?
Yeah, so there are, I think, two things to really mention there. One is that we focus on internationalization at home, which is all the students at your university and trying to give them an international learning experience. And one of the ways to do that is through COIL and through VE. And since we focus on that, we can research that the pedagogy and research the other aspects that are associated to it. And the other thing is that we try to step a bit away from just single case studies, which we have done in the past. And sometimes lecturers are still enthusiastic to research partially their own practices, but we try to focus a bit more on the roles that of the people that are involved, such as an educational advisor or an international coordinator or the lecturers or the students, and then try to take several of these projects or practices at one time and research those. And we don't always publish those researches, as they are also used for internal improvements.
Mm.
But some of them we do publish, and you can find them online. There are conferences upcoming where they will also be presented. So, for instance, at the EAIE, there will be some different results published there. And those will be linked to different articles. You can also just search them on your Google Scholar and other forms. So we do have that research as well. And then they are collected in I would say, various blogs and magazines, etc., that we tend to try to spread the word as well. So I wouldn't say it's at one place where you can find everything, although you can find our research group, Global Learning, online at the Hague University as well.
In terms of research, are there elements and aspects that are coming out of your research that are worth highlighting and noting at this point?
I think that there are various developments in virtual exchange and in COIL, and then those are researched. And one of them is that it's more about the institutional approaches. So I think that's a new topic that we tend to focus on. And that's not only in research, but that's also in discussions about the practice and talking to other coordinators and really trying to establish a bit more evidence for that. And another aspect is this question of quality, and when is something good for an institution, and how do you measure that then, and what is it and what isn't it? So I think that's where this qualitative approach comes in, that we mentioned before.
Can you expand a bit on that?
Sure. So this idea of a qualitative approach means that you look at people's experience and their opinions and what they share about this. And this can be the lecturers, when you interview different lecturers in certain stages in a COIL project or in a virtual exchange project. It can be the students as well, also what they write in their evaluations. And you have to always be mindful of whom they are writing it for, because otherwise it can be a collection of very nice stories, to say it like that. And you analyze those evaluations together, and you try to get some insights out of those as well.
Can you tell us a bit about those insights? What are you seeing? What do they like? What do they not like?
Well, from the student side, it's very diverse, as COIL and VE is quite diverse. If you look at questionnaires, students at the Hague, but in the Netherlands, they tend to rate themselves quite high on an interculturality scale.
You've heard that a lot. And then in practice, they're less good at this. I'm hearing that a lot. That's interesting.
Yes. And I think that besides that, it's good to look a bit at what else students are experiencing and what does that all touch. And that can touch the digital aspects. It can touch the language aspects, especially if you're dealing with non-native speakers. We often have Dutch students participating, and they tend to develop their confidence through these virtual exchange projects. So it's not so much their technical language skills, but more the willingness to speak to others.
Skills, isn't it? Yeah.
But it can also be the subject insights and the knowledge from the subject itself and the insights from the other partner. So we find it quite important to link the intercultural aspects, to actually put an umbrella term on those, the culture, the language, perhaps things that appear in every virtual exchange project, next to the content and what students are expected to learn from the content side or the insights that they gain from that, and to try to see, well, what happens there. And if we look at that, and if we talk to our lecturers, we see that the first lecture, the first coil, or how we say that, is between the lecturers. So they have to talk to each other, they have to design, they have to co-design, and the strength of that co-design is very important for the outcomes of what the students learn. So that
And
is.
internally, you're just to go back to the co-design and the how much support are these lecturers getting in terms of the design? Is there a whole team behind this, or are they left to themselves to design it?
And they're definitely not left to themselves, but lectures are also lectures for a reason. They like to have a certain personal approach and personal space as well. So it's not that we force them to do certain things, but we do want them to take at least 2 sessions before they start a virtual exchange practice on what does collaborative learning mean.
Exactly, I was going to ask, are they trained? Is there some training beforehand?
So there are 2 sessions together with their peers before the project starts, and actually before they might even design the project. So with their peers at the Hague University, and then there is support available during their design and execution process with educational developers being present. And the one lecturer wants to meet every other week with an educational developer, and the other one wants to meet once and then wants to try out certain things. And then at the end, there is always a kind of evaluational talk to see how the process has been implemented.
So what was it that convinced your institution to support virtual exchange and internationalization at home? Because presumably there's funding now for this and it's part of everything that you do. So what was it that clinched it? Because I interview a lot of lecturers and they just say, no, I have to do it by myself. No one, I can't get any support. How did you do that then?
Well, first of all, let me say that it's an ongoing process. So it doesn't mean, oh, you get funding once, then okay, for the next years it is guaranteed. And also we haven't yet fully institutionalized that part. I think that different programs and faculties still have different approaches to that also within our university. So sometimes lecturers get time and get everything, and in other cases they don't, because also they don't really measure very well how the lecturer does the other subjects as well. So there is not one standardized approach in that. But how did we get this support is, I think, through a certain scale, because if there are more lecturers that are interested, then people talk about it more, and it doesn't become reliant on a few people
Right.
that share, that are the champions, you could say.
Yeah.
But you develop more and more expertise, and that influences each other. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that you can use it to reach different aims. So the one lecturer really likes it because they like everything about it, and they love being international, and they want their students to be international, and this is seen as a unique approach. And the other really likes it because the content of the subject and the knowledge of the lecturer somewhere else is very interesting, and that part is very nice and motivating. So I think that's the key thing for virtual exchange, no matter if it's funded or not. It still takes time for the lecturer to develop and to deal with the flexibility that's required, and to deal with the students. And that always seems a bit on top, because it is something different and it requires some different skills than your regular teaching.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm assuming that your virtual exchanges are across all faculties and subjects and are interdisciplinary. Is that right?
Yes, there are more in the social sciences, but we have 7 faculties, and 2024, 2025 is the first study year that each faculty at least has one of these coils. But yeah, there are some that have more than 20 or more than 10 for a bit of a smaller one, and another one that is still, and some that are still starting up. So that there is a different path there in terms of growth. Yeah.
I'm curious, what's the take up with the STEM subjects?
That is the more difficult part, I would say. It depends a bit on how the STEM projects are, because even in those faculties, there are programs such as process and food technology that are quite used to working internationally and that are very open to it. But there are also programs where I've heard, well, we don't need to do that because, a one is the same in the Netherlands as it is there. So what's the point? I would say that there is a mind shift changing there, that they say, okay, we can do it, but then there are usually some conditions as well that they have, such as it has to fit more to their learning goals, and they are starting more, I would say.
What about recognition and credits? If it's institutionalized or becoming more institutionalized, do you have a way do the students get credits and recognition for their participation in virtual exchange?
It's not yet an automatically given recognition there. We have the possibilities to provide certification, but that differs per faculty how they do that. I think most important is that we have a strategy of internationalization at home, which means we try to make it part of the curriculum. And that means that it's for real credits. So
Yeah.
we try to focus on, well, yes, it's special, but you also just get credits for it. So you have to do it. And that brings with it some different challenges, because then you get students that perhaps don't want to do it, but then feel forced to do it. And that, I think, is a very nice challenge, because learning is not only about doing the things you only want to do,
That's right.
but learning from new experiences.
Mm,
And of course, they're not very, very negative, because once they meet students somewhere else, they're still students. They still can talk
mm,
to them. They feel that that's relatively easy to talk to their international peers as well.
mm,
So I think the main thing that we focus on is not so much certification, but more the credit side, that is
mm.
really part of the learning outcomes for a module, and part of the curriculum, whether it's for everyone, so for 150 students in one time, or for a minor, for which it's a very specific subject.
Do you partner with which countries are you partnering with, or does that evolve and change all the time, or do you have your regular institutions that you're partnering with?
I think we've always had a lot of international partners. I think we have 200 plus
Oh,
international
wow.
partners, and that's not for virtual exchange, but that's for everything combined, kind of.
Mm,
For virtual exchange and for COIL, what we see is we have partners within Europe where programs want to have a closer collaboration with. So they say, okay, well, we already do some mobility, we already do some different things. Why not try this as well? And then really integrate it, and then really make it part of a study program from each side.
mm,
And then there is another approach, and that is that you say, well, how can we get an interesting perspective for this subject in-house, which we do not have at our own program? Because
mm.
even though we have international programs, the majority is still Dutch. So, for instance, for a subject, a minor focusing on dealing with war crimes, we partner with a Ukrainian university. Yeah?
Right. Oh,
And
interesting.
for intercultural management, we can partner with South Africa or with Mexico. And then the Netherlands has some ties, of course, with Indonesia. So there's also some links there.
Mm.
So at the moment, we still see that 2/3 is within Europe and a third is outside Europe.
And is there anything you'd like to add that I haven't asked you today before you go?
Well, I think it is perhaps good to add that in this institutionalizing, it's good to look at which stakeholders you can reach and which stakeholders are important for you. And on that stakeholder side, there is also a presentation at AIEA and at the NAFIC website, where we focused on different Dutch institutions. And we asked, well, how does internationalization at home or of the curriculum actually work? So there will be some publications there as well. But the same counts for virtual exchange. It's good to have enthusiastic lecturers. It's good to support them, but it's even better to think about, well, who else can we involve to make sure that next year you can do it again and improve it. Because it's not going to be perfect the first time. But of course, I motivate you to start, because the only way to learn is by doing in this case.
Absolutely. So, Reinout, for 2026 and going forward, what are your main challenges within your institution?
I think the main challenge is to really institutionalize the support for COIL and for virtual exchange. And that means the certification, that means the hours, that means some standards, that means a good discussion on how to organize this the best way. Because yes, we have leadership support. Yes, we have capacity, but we do not yet have everything in place to provide continuous support. So that is something that we want to focus on.